Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Pensacola. My name is Nancy Hagman. If you are new, welcome. If you have chosen a different seat to sit in today, that's a good thing. If you happen to know the person next to you or not, say hello. And I'm smiling as I'm watching two people that know each other and no one around them say hello to each other. Perhaps the first time that they looked at each other in the eyes and said hello. At least that's what happens for me at my house. We're glad you're here. We're glad you're here in a chair in our community. We're glad you're here online in our extended community, and you are welcome to be with us in sound and in vision. Thank you for the reminder of sound. If you'll silence your phones, that would be helpful. And I will just mention that we are a lay-led community. Many of us did not grow up with lay leadership communities, but this community has chosen to be lay-led, which means we do not have an identified minister at this congregation. So we lead the services ourselves. We have guest services. We have guest people speaking with us. And we broaden our horizons looking to each other and those outside of us to become more knowledgeable and educated and enjoy one another. We will begin by lighting the chalice, and Joe will do that. We light a chalice today in honor of us, in honor of the light, and in honor of other UUs that are also lighting their chalices as a ritual of invitation and a reminder of the light that we carry within us. The opening words. This is where we are. Where do we go from here? First, we must massively assert our dignity and worth. We must stand up amidst a system that still oppresses and develops an unassailable and majestic sense of values. What is needed is a realization that power without love is reckless and abusive, and that love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love, implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power, correcting everything that stands against us. And this is what we must see as we move on. Martin Luther King, Jr. And now, if the choir will come, you may sit and enjoy some music for meditation. Now, if you'll stand and join the choir, our opening hymn is number 40 in the gray hymnal. It should be in front of you, or next to you, or behind you. 140. And now we will have our covenant, and it is on the screen. And we will say it together. Love is the spirit of this church.
And service is all. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love,
and to help one another. And you may be seated, and the choir can be seated. And I can back up to the announcements that I chose not to look at when I was on the slide for welcome and announcements. For somehow that just slid right by, and this congregation did not yell at me. So I appreciate all the comfort and support that you give me today. So we will do announcements now. if you can listen. Thank you. This is our Sunday cleanup announcement. We need more people to be involved in cleaning up after church. We have a couple of steady people, but we need a few more to join in and help. If you think you can't do it, you can. You can glide things down to the kitchen. You can put things in the water. And some of you may never do that at home. There may be somebody in your house that does. But we would love for you to learn how to do it in our house. Thank you. UUCP is planning a fall retreat and a camp out in October. We're going to join 3 other UU churches from our area. So not only will it be our congregation, but we will interact with other UU churches across the Panhandle. If you're interested, even though it's early, it would be helpful for people to know that you're interested. So you could contact Chris, our president, or Mary Beth, our Fun and Fellowship chair. The membership team, let me just ask you, when you come to the front door, what is it you're looking for? Somebody to be there? Somebody to say hello? Perhaps it's the only person that smiled at you today. So we need more people that want to do that. And again, if that's not something that you do well, you can learn it here. We teach, we share with one another, and we greet. So greeters and ushers, recently there have been a couple of people that haven't been able to continue to do it. So we're looking for more greeters and ushers. Barbara Wright is the coordinator for that particular part of our church. She does many things, but that she does coordinate. So if you would, and she's usually at the front door. So if you have trouble finding somebody, look at the front door. We are making our long-term plan. This is a vision to see what we would like to be looking like in 5 years. This is 2026. You can do the math. I can't always do the math. I get it all confused. So consequently, do the math yourself, and in 5 years, what would we look like? We would love to have ideas after church on several Sundays. In the next few months, we will have a listening session, not today, but probably next week, and listening sessions to hear your ideas and your thoughts. And today, we have a special time. It's our mid-year congregational meeting. We meet twice a year as a congregation. The mid-year is just in January to kind of keep us up to date as to where we are, what we've accomplished, what we plan to accomplish in the next 6 months, what we do and enjoy with one another, as well as where we are financially, psychologically, emotionally, and we come together for about an hour, and we will do that today after this service. You are welcome to join us. It does help you to understand the interconnections of our work and who we are with one another, and we are about interconnections. Thank you. This advertisement will pause, and we will move into our exciting new member ceremony. And Lauren Anzaldo is going to come forth. And if you're going to be a part of our church and you are joining today, please join us up front. And if you'll come up on both sides of the candle lighting and face the congregation. Mike, if you'd stand on this side, that would be great. Yeah, there we go. And I will.
Not a good idea to sneak up behind Nancy. Okay. Perfect. So my name is Lauren Anzaldo. I'm the chair of our membership team, and one of my favorite parts of my job is getting to recognize our new members. Those of you who are members may remember this time for you when we covenant together and we get to welcome and watch our community grow. And there's a lot of ways we grow, and that includes numbers as well as deepening our community and connection with one another. This morning we have a lot of folks to recognize. Not everyone is here today. I got several folks that are out of town traveling or otherwise not able to be here. Hold on one second. So the words are going to be on the screen here, but the new members are standing facing you, and of course their back is to the screen so they can't see the words. Amir, you get to come up too. You coming? Okay, if you would go to the next slide. We have a new friend. So and Ray is not here this morning. Usually Ray is at the drums often or involved with the music. So Ray is a friend, and there's a difference between being a friend or member. I'm not going to go into all of that, but if Ray were here, I would ask them to stand and be recognized where they are. We still want to recognize that Ray is an important part of our community, although not here today to be a part of this ceremony. The next screen will have the names of all of our new members. So we have James Brockway, we have Shauna Calhoun, we have Farron Collins, we have Michael Gaines. Jackie Grice is not here. You may remember we've lit a candle for Jackie a few times since she has some health issues. Amir King is there with the musicians. Kate Nelson Dooley and her child Escher is not here today because of other obligations. You may have been seeing them as a young person in the CRE program. So Kate comes with a young person, which we love to welcome as well. And then Philip Smith had a family obligation this morning. He's been attending regularly. And then we have Gay Yao, and some of you may say, like with Farron and Michael and some other folks, like, I see these people all the time. They must have been members a long time ago, and everyone moves through their journey in their own way, so not everyone becomes a member, even though all of these folks have been really integral parts of our community for quite some time. But this is kind of the official, in terms of having signed the membership book, having made that commitment, and having come forward, and we're going to do the ceremony today. So also, if any of you have an interest after today and want to talk with me more about what it means to be a member, I'm happy to do that with you. So the next slide will have our words, and these the congregation will say, and the new members will go after. So we warmly welcome you into membership. We are glad you have chosen to join us. We know that the ideas, energies, resources, and commitments which each of you bring will greatly enrich our vibrant and growing community. And now the new members together. And all of us together, we commit ourselves to an ever-increasing understanding of right relations among us. We value honesty, direct speaking, and courtesy in our conflict, courage in our speech, and integrity in our action. We hold one another accountable to our very best intentions. May we be true to ourselves, true to each other, and true to the vision of the beloved community we are ever becoming. Now, before anyone runs off, we have a tradition that we call affectionately the beading of the new members, with a D, beading. And my counterpart, Lori Winterberg, also a membership person, will present those. And then for all the new members as well, there's a table over here with little gifts to you, small stickers and items that you can take just on the other side of this plant here. So please do that, and know that you'll have a part of us with you always, and we are so glad and thankful to welcome you into membership and to welcome you into your involvement with our congregation. And definitely give them a hand. Thanks, everyone.
It's really great to have guest speakers come and speak to us, but it's also great to have people join and come to hear people that are a part of our congregation. As you just heard, there was one person who perhaps came because of the speaker today, Joe Vincent. So welcome to our congregation, and welcome to Joe Vincent, our speaker for today. You know what to do. Go now in peace. Go now in peace.
All right. Oh, we should also probably do the offering. Nancy. I'll take over. So we are a member-supported congregation, so now is a time when our ushers will go around with the baskets, and our musicians will play a little music, and we will gladly accept any donations that you have or pledges that you want to make to your pledge. But yes, thank you very much.
I think we had someone talk about it takes a village. Thank you very much.
All right. Now we'll get to the message. My name is Joe Vincent, he, him again. And I just want to let the record show that through no fault of my own, it is now 20 minutes until 11. And for those of you who have seen some of my services in the past, I'm not the most concise of speakers. I'm going to try to get through this quickly, but this is one of those topics where I kind of kept writing. Yes. This is about the prophetic critique and reclaiming religious identity. Are there any Philomena Kunk fans here? So there's a moment early in the program Kunk on Life where she is interviewing Douglas Headley, a Cambridge philosophy of religion professor and living caricature of academic snobbery. I couldn't find a video clip that I could download, and I won't try to approximate either of their incredible accents. But she starts by asking, "Why are we here?" There's a pause, and Professor Headley responds, "You mean why human beings exist?" And she says, "No, I mean, why are we here, and is this like near your house or something?" So I'll pose you the same question. Why do we come here? In this church building specifically, or to a faith congregation more generally? That's a question I asked myself a lot when I first started coming to UCP many years ago, and for a while I couldn't come up with a good enough answer to keep coming back, because it was not near my house, honestly. I wasn't raised UU, I was raised Baptist. In high school, I sort of intuited the concept of universalism without knowing the history of the movement, and I decided the Baptist church wasn't right for me. I started exploring more liberal denominations like Presbyterians, but they would recite these statements of faith, the Apostles' Creed, that made me uncomfortable as well. If I didn't really believe a lot of the things that they were all reciting, was I allowed to be there? Could I call myself a Christian or even religious anymore? Living in the Bible Belt, it helps to have a religious identity, in much the same way it helps to have a football team. Maybe you've been to a social gathering where someone casually asks you, "So, what church do you go to?" It's awkward to respond, "Oh, me? Nowhere, because I reject the historicity and inerrance of the Bible, and I reject many of the tenets." You probably are not going to get an invitation back to that kind of party. But that's one benefit of coming to UCP right there. If someone asks, you can demonstrate, as long as they ask absolutely no follow-up questions. You're just a normal church-going Southerner. I assume that was at least part of the decision many years ago when this congregation changed its name from the Pensacola Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, the Fightin' Poofs, to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Pensacola. I still panic when someone starts talking football with me, but at least I've got the church thing covered. Still, my Baptist upbringing didn't just disappear. When we started coming to UUCP, one of the things that I struggled with was the music. Something about the UU hymns just wasn't clicking for me. I missed the songs from my mother's hymn book, by which I mean both the Baptist hymnal that I grew up with and also the Johnny Cash album. But when I went back to examine those hymns to see if maybe there were some of them that I could port over to UU with a few changes to the lyrics, I realized something. The words are also passive. God has all the power and the agency, and the only thing for humans to do is worship him because of the underlying hope/fear about what will happen to us after we die. Or, in Always Sunny terms, because of the implication. Isn't this just telling the guy with the gun what he wants to hear? Even Amazing Grace, an amazing hymn, incredible abolitionist story behind it, is usually sung with a final verse that goes, "When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun." And I'm sorry, but that always just seemed very bleak to me. Is that the eternal reward that's waiting for us? Could I maybe take a look-see at the daily itinerary before I commit to this? Comedian Mike Birbiglia has a bit that made me chuckle.
I'm interested in religion, but whenever a religion has an afterlife, it loses me.
That's great.
Yeah, it just loses me. Because I view the afterlife the way I view the after party. I'm not going.
Wonderful.
If it's not going to happen at the party, I'm going home.
Dude,
I didn't even want to come to the party. I barely came to the party.
this is genius. That's great.
So to be religious, do you have to believe in an afterlife? To be Christian, do you have to believe in the Trinity or the resurrection of Christ or any other tenet that gets recited in those creeds? Are there necessary and sufficient features, or is this more of a Wittgenstein's family resemblance sort of thing? Andrew Mark Henry, a scholar of religion who runs the YouTube channel Religion for Breakfast, recently examined some of what he described as, quote, terrible definitions of religion. Those included anthropologist E.B. Tyler's minimum definition of religion as, quote, the belief in spiritual beings, or theologian Paul Tillich's definition that religion is, quote, the state of being grasped by an ultimate concern. While these definitions cover a lot of religious identities, they are not universal. A frequently occurring feature is not an organizing principle, and the belief in spirits is often secondary to religious practice. According to Henry, religion is built out of very ordinary human things that are done without much introspection. Routines, rules, storytelling, rituals, and social expectations. Religious life for most people is a cultural operating system running in the background. It's not what we think, it's what we do together. And that, I now understand, is my answer for why I am here in this building. It's what we do together. This congregation is active in the community as individuals and collectively in ways that inspire me, ways that align with my identity and my values. Like our covenant says, love is the spirit of this church and service its law. In theory, loving and serving others are very Christian values. But of course, many of us have seen what Christian values can look like in practice. Homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, cheering on a government that threatens and invades its neighbors, that idolizes the rich and powerful, that hurts the vulnerable and the marginalized, that brutalizes and kills its own citizens. In her book, Why Religion?, Elaine Pagels recounts a time in her youth when, after seeing Billy Graham speak, she briefly embraced evangelical Christianity. But she became disillusioned after a Jewish friend of hers was killed in a car accident, and her Christian friends flatly told her he was in hell. Quote, instead of drawing people together as Graham had when he spoke of God's love for everyone, these people were like a club for people spiritually superior to everyone who didn't share their beliefs. Numb, devastated, and alone, I left the church and I never went back. But Pagels did go on to become a prestigious scholar of religion and the Bible. As she writes, quote, am I religious? Yes, incorrigibly by temperament, if you mean susceptible to the music, the rituals, the daring leaps of imagination and metaphor so often found in music, poems, liturgies, rituals, and stories. But when we say religion, what are we talking about? Like most people, I used to think that religion was primarily a matter of what you believe, but I've had to abandon that assumption, seeing how the particular circumstances of Christianity's origin led certain leaders to equate true religion with a set of beliefs, especially since the 4th century when certain bishops hammered out the list of doctrines called the Nicene Creed, and Emperor Constantine and his successors decided to use it as a test of who is or isn't legitimately religious, end quote. To be sure, the history of Christianity has no shortage of using belief to gatekeep access to power. But what's interesting about the brand of Christianity that is currently dominating the United States is how utterly divorced it is from Christian teachings, how it fetishizes Christian identity above anything in Christ's teachings. Think of the absurd performances of religious identity that have become culture war shibboleths, displaying crosses or the 10 Commandments on public property, forcing public school children to engage in prayer, putting in God we trust on money, the war on Christmas. It's just a way to ostracize an other and outgroup, a religious minority. So how did we get here? In The Religion of American Greatness, What's Wrong with Christian Nationalism, author Paul D. Miller points to a particular historical inflection point, the Jacksonian era, when we rapidly expanded our settler colonial project to the South and West and defined our national identity based on who was excluded from its benefits: Indians, Mexicans, Asians, African Americans, Catholic immigrants, and so on. Quote, calling Jacksonians Christians does not mean that they are churchgoers. Their attitude toward their Christianity is closer to the old world's attitude. Religion is an inherited trait that naturally goes with one's tribal and national loyalties. They are Christians in the sense that they identify with a white Christian ethno-religious group by default, and Jacksonian Christianity comes with a sense of entitlement to own and define the American brand. They are nationalists who believe that their culture should define the nation. When the Christian right emerged in the 1970s promising a return to Christian power, Jacksonians were its voting base. Today, Jacksonian America is what we call Middle America or Red State America, the prevailing culture of the South and most of the Inland West, and they are the political base of American nationalism, end quote. Much has been written about that Christian right resurgence of the 1970s, how after losing both the political and public opinion battles for school segregation, white conservatives deliberately shifted focus to abortion as a wedge issue, a more acceptable, morally framed rallying point for conservative political power, which is ironic because while there are different Christian and Jewish traditions about fetal personhood or ensoulment, the quickening, not to be confused with the Highlander terminology, these are post-biblical hermeneutics. The Bible itself consistently associates personhood with breath, the breath of life, in other words, life birth, and treats the death of a fetus in Exodus as a property crime. And yet entire generations of Christians have been raised to believe that abortion, something Jesus never talked about, is the single most important and overriding issue of the Christian faith. And of course, we've all heard the one about how we need to go back to the biblical definition of marriage, which is between, say it with me, one man and one woman. Sorry, which Bible were you reading? I guess it shouldn't be a surprise then how unrecognizable MAGA Christianity is from what's on the page. But I was still a little taken aback by this video posted a few months back by Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Now, you may know that as the Lord's Prayer, which comes from Matthew 6, 9 through 13, part of the Sermon on the Mount, and right after the Beatitudes, where he said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." You may also be familiar with the verses leading up to it. Quote, "And whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners so that they may be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you." It's hard to imagine a more blatant misreading of the gospel than to record yourself performatively reciting this secret private prayer in public and setting it to B-roll, glorifying the weapons of war with all these ridiculous movie trailer music cues and bass drops. That was the clincher for me that I must actually be a Christian, because on Jesus' behalf, that pissed me off. Yet these are the people who claim to be in favor of having a Christian nation. House Speaker Mike Johnson has said that he's a Bible-believing Christian, and that if you want to know his position on any issue, quote, "Go pick up a Bible off your shelf and read it. That's my worldview." Here's a fun thought experiment. What would a truly Christian nation look like? Currently, the annual budget for the Department of War is about $1 trillion, $1,000 billion for 1 year. President Trump has said that he wants to increase it to $1.5 trillion next year. I'm curious, as a Christian nation, how much money would the Department of War get? Any guesses? Zero? Well, I think Jesus would want some money going to health care for veterans, but that's about it, right? After all, the motto is "In God we trust." Remember when Jesus told Paul to walk on the water in Matthew 14? It works until Peter's faith wavers and then he sinks. If we're spending $1 trillion on defense every year, it doesn't sound like we're trusting God very much, does it? You might be saying, but what if China bombs our western coast? Do we just do nothing? No, I think the Bible tells us. If China bombs our west coast, we turn our east coast to them also. Matthew 5. Here's another question. There were around 900 billionaires in the United States in 2025. In a truly Christian nation, how many billionaires would there be?
0.
Matthew 19, Jesus tells the rich man to sell all his possessions and give it to the poor, and that it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. If we're putting the 10 Commandments in schools to help save the souls of all those kids, surely we want to save those poor doomed billionaires, right? Or are we going to be like the old SNL sketch?
I've also invested millions of dollars from my tobacco and pornography enterprises to build very large needles and very small camels. Unless I'm completely missed the message of the Bible, somewhere in here is my ticket to heaven.
But why stop at billionaires? Acts 4 describes how the apostles of Jesus claimed no private ownership of anything, and there was not a needy person among them. When they sold their possessions, the proceeds were distributed to each according to their needs. Sounds vaguely familiar to me. We should ask Mike Johnson what he thinks about that form of government. When two of the apostles, Ananias and Sapphira, sold some property but held back a portion of the proceeds, they were both struck dead. It seems like the Holy Spirit was pretty serious about that communal ownership thing. Might be something to consider in our truly Christian nation. In a truly Christian nation, how many hungry would go without food? How many strangers would not be welcomed? How many sick and imprisoned would not be cared for? Matthew 25, just as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. In a truly Christian nation, how many people would be killed as they tried to protect strangers? How many masked men's bullets would be emptied into the face of a mother, into the back of a nurse? One of the most disturbing things about these recent killings is how many people in our community, people you may consider friends or loved ones, people who, despite our political differences, you assumed had a shared sense of morality, had a moment of discomfort when they saw the videos of these killings of a fellow American murdered by a masked agent of state violence, only to have that sense of morality twist and contort itself in real time to fit the social identity that they have adapted. And before you know it, they have accepted the murders as just, as good, as funny. Let's make some memes. There is a cult of bloodlust that has taken over the country in Christian guise, a theocracy of violence. When we look at the history of Christianity or religions in general, it's easy to take away the conclusion that this is the rule rather than the exception. For every example of liberation theology, there's a crusade or a pogrom or a curse of Ham to justify slavery. It turns out when people go looking for God, they tend to find the kind of God they were looking for, a God who looks and acts a lot like them. And many of them are just violent people who want to commit war, who want to enslave and subjugate and dominate others, who want to structure power in favor of their in-group, and they have no compunction about saying, God has authorized me to do this, to justify this bloodshed. If you look at that history and say, I want no part of that label, I get it. If you were raised in a traumatizing version of religion and want to disavow it completely, I hear you. Some people in this congregation, I understand, were not pleased when the name changed from fellowship to church because of the baggage that comes with that name. But if we acknowledge that religion can be used as a weapon, we should also acknowledge the risk of asymmetrical conflict. A few years ago, I gave a talk called Faith versus Works, where I noted that the Bible often gets turned into this, a cudgel. Well, somehow my eloquent words have not stopped people from using it as a cudgel, so I would now suggest that we not show up to the cudgel fight empty-handed. Ultimately, what I've been describing is two opposing sides engaged in the same thing, right? On the one hand, I complain that those people are fixated on Christian identity to secure social, political goals. But on the other hand, I admit that I come to UUCP because it's aligned with my social identity and politics. That's hypocritical, right? I've shared this quote from Nelson Mandela's autobiography before. Quote, "It is the oppressor who defines the nature of the struggle, and the oppressed is often left no recourse but to use methods that mirror those of the oppressor. At a point, one can only fight fire with fire." There is power in identity. We know this. It's one thing for a person like me to speak out about Palestinian rights. It's another when those calls come from groups like Jewish Voice for Peace. When U.S. military veterans speak out in opposition to war. When cisgender women speak up for trans women. We've heard recently from both Lauren and Zach about how right-wing denominations have gained ground in the United States because they have more successfully claimed the mantle of Christian identity. Despite what the hymn lyrics might lead me to believe, these are not passive people, and they have organized very effectively to structure power. Liberal Christians generally aren't comfortable being outspoken on matters of faith, especially where it overlaps with politics. And many of us have been convinced that there are minimum tenets of faith required to claim any kind of religious label, qualifications which we may not meet. The predictable consequence of this is a vacuum, where people raised to have a Christian identity are pulled strongly towards where the gravitational center seems to be, which is fundamentalism. To counter this, we need to reclaim religious identity and speak prophetically in public spaces. In the book, Reclaiming Prophetic Witness, Liberal Religion in the Public Square, Paul Razor notes that prophets have always been concerned with practical matters. Quote, "In the early Israelite society from which the prophetic tradition emerged, there was no distinction between religion and politics. In the Deuteronomic passage relating to prophets, God says, 'I will put my words in the mouth of the prophet who shall speak to the people everything that I command.' They are God's spokespersons, and their pronouncements are understood as divine messages that almost always are related to situations of injustice, especially those involving oppression or exploitation of the weakest members of society. When the prophets denounce injustice, they are announcing God's justice." End quote. A good example is the 8th century BCE. The 8th century was a time of relative peace and prosperity in the kingdoms of Israel in the north and Judah in the south. After centuries of upheaval, competing dynasties, military coups, etc., both kingdoms have this period of calm. King Jeroboam II of Israel rules for 4 decades, and King Uzziah of Judah rules even longer. Unprecedented reigns at that time. They're not fighting each other, and they've managed to avoid being conquered by Assyria yet. That means steady trade, which creates a lot of economic growth, but it's only benefiting the wealthy. There's increasing wealth inequality as the haves figure out ways to exploit the have-nots. They're consolidating land and dispossessing independent farmers. They're corrupting the legal system to force people into debt slavery. They're living in luxury while the poor suffer, if you can imagine such a thing. What we see in response is called the Prophetic Critique. The 8th century prophets, Amos, Hosea, Isaiah, Micah, call out these inequalities and demand social justice. Amos says, quote, "They who trample the head of the poor into the dust of the earth and push the afflicted out of the way. Ah, you who turn justice to wormwood, you who afflict the righteous, who take a bribe and push the needy in the gate, let justice roll down like water and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream." Isaiah condemned monopolistic landowners who bought up all the property. Quote, "Woe to those who join house to house, who add field to field until there is room for no one." Micah asks, "What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God?" It's important to note that while many like to think of the Bible as a static univocal text that is internally consistent, the prophets understood differently. They are constantly amending God's instructions. Mosaic law mandated a complex system of animal sacrifices and offerings. But in the 8th century, when wealthy people can show off how holy they are with their offerings, while others go hungry, the prophets say, no, the rules have changed. Hosea says that God desires mercy, not sacrifice. According to Isaiah, God says, actually, I hate your sacrifices. They make me sick. Instead, cease to do evil, learn to do good, seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, plead for the widow. I think part of prophetic witness is not just picking out the parts of the Bible that we like, it's shutting down the parts that are harmful. It's shaping the narrative. Religious practice is more than belief, it's what we do together, the sum of our shared values. And with that is both the privilege and the responsibility to co-create what is holy. A couple months ago, when there was all the hubbub about the Christmas drag show at the Sanger Theater, I made this jokey post on my social media. Quote, "So listen, I talked to God. He asked me to tell everyone that he doesn't care about drag." An old friend from my Baptist church days chimed in saying, "It's a good idea not to speak for the God of the universe. His word will speak, and it has." We went back and forth a few more times, but where I left it was this. Call it intuition or revelation. This is what I believe God is telling me. Why would God speak to all those prophets thousands of years ago and then stop? Whatever you might think about the divine inspiration of the Bible, I think that my living existence is a more direct line to God than this frozen, flawed text. Now, of course, they could say the same thing. And I guess time will tell whose prophetic witness was right. But I feel confident about where the moral high ground is on trivial things like a drag show, and serious things like what we've been seeing the past few weeks. I'm confident about which sense of morality will be consigned to the dustbin of history. The drag show was great, by the way. As Razor says, a long-term view is essential if our prophetic practice is to be effective. We must be willing to participate in the struggle for justice against the forces of empire, even if we can't define all the terms of our involvement, and even when we can't control the outcome. Responsible prophetic practice means changing what we can in the present while also creating the conditions of possibility for further changes by others. So, in closing, everybody please bow your heads. I'm going to make a little wavy gesture. And that's it. Congratulations. It's official. You're all prophets now. So go talk to God. Let me know what you hear back. We can compare notes. Thank you very much.
you'll stand, our gray hymnal number 118, we will sing together. This Little Light of Mine. I don't think you actually need a hymnal. You probably went to camp sometime. You probably had a 3-year-old sing it to you. So feel free to just enjoy the song. You may be seated for the closing if you would like. Religion and justice are born of each other's wings. What makes them such soulmates? Every single one of us knows what it is like to bleed. Every one of us has experienced pain. If that were not a fact of human existence, we might not notice the suffering of the world. But because it is, we do. Every single one of us knows what it is like to bleed. In one respect, pain is a gift because it cultivates our imagination. Without it, we would be far less likely to rail at deprivation or shrink from cruelty. In the heart of every stranger lurks a reflection of our own. William Schultz, our past president of the UUA. Go in peace. Glad you were here. Enjoy the day.